For your chance to win a Lucas Paqueta and Said Benrahma signed shirt from the Europa Conference League final, plus a chance to win 18 instant West Ham prizes, go to footballprizes.co.uk for the latest competition details. Competition closes on Wednesday, the 18th of September at 7:30, and the very best of luck. Very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on a Sunday evening, early evening. I hope you're all doing well and not too disappointed with the result against Fulham. At least we didn't lose. Look, if you're new to the channel, please do consider becoming a subscriber of the channel if you enjoy the content. And whether you're new or existing, if you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. Now, 4 games in, and West Ham have won 1 game, lost 2, and drew 1. Okay, 2 defeats against Man City and Aston Villa, 2 very good sides, both going for Champions League football again this season. Okay, they were at home, and I guess that's the disappointing bit. Did we expect to get anything from the Man City game? Well, we almost did. If Kudus hadn't hit the bar and that shot had gone in the second half, who knows how that might have turned out. Against Aston Villa, decent team. And I guess not a lot of fans were that, were disappointed with the defeat. But, losing against a team like Aston Villa, I guess wasn't that difficult to take. And then, of course, we made up for it, didn't we, when we went away against Crystal Palace and put in a decent performance, and we got our 3 points there. So when it came to the game against Fulham, I think a lot of fans expected, in a way, much the same as what we did against Crystal Palace. And I think there's that disappointment, the fact that we didn't actually win the game and we actually found ourselves chasing the game, which I think was a little bit more frustrating for a lot of fans. Look, I said in the preview that I did on Saturday morning that Fulham are a decent team. They've got a decent squad and they've got a very good coach in Marco Silva. But I also said that I didn't think Adama Traore was going to do much against us. And I was completely wrong, because credit to him, he caused us an awful lot of problems on that right-hand side of the pitch. And had it not been for his poor finishing, and he had several chances, perhaps Fulham might have run away with this game, but they didn't. So, yes, all right, last season we got a 5-0 drubbing there. And coming away with a point this season, I guess some may call that improvement. But I think for a lot of others, we were expecting to have got a win out of this game, to be honest with you. Now, when you look at the lineup, you look at... Oh, let's get that back in. When you look at the lineup, I think there were some surprises. Now, I kind of did think in the back of my mind that Soucek would start. I talked about Paqueta coming back late from international duty, and I suggested that Soler was probably not going to be match fit. So I kind of thought, well, he might slip Soucek in there. What I didn't think he'll do, I didn't think he was going to play Antonio, for example. With Antonio coming back late, I mean, he started his game for Jamaica at 3:00 in the morning, our time, on Wednesday morning. So having played that game and then having rested and then flying back, I mean, they played Honduras, so I don't know whether he flew straight back from Honduras or went back to Jamaica and then flew back from there. Whatever. That would have taken time as well. And it was interesting that Lopetegui, when he did his pre-match press conference on Thursday, suggested that all our players had not yet returned from international duty, or they were just coming back. So it was, between Thursday afternoon and then Saturday, how did he then decide that Antonio was going to be in that lineup? And then the 2 holding midfielders are kind of surprised, and then not overly surprised. I suggested that he might go for Rodriguez and Alvarez, but then at the same time, no disrespect to Fulham, thinking that because it was against Fulham, that maybe he might have been a little bit more adventurous and not have 2 holding midfielders there. And to me, having 2 holding midfielders, having Soucek and having Antonio in that lineup kind of gave the game, or certainly the first half, to Fulham. Look, in every game we've played so far this season, we started off brightly. The first 10 minutes or so, we were doing okay. We looked like we were in the game. But we don't capitalize when we're when we're on top in the first few minutes, first 10 minutes of the game. We're not scoring goals in that time. Apart from Crystal Palace, of course. And when we don't take advantage, then the other team settles into the game, settles into the rhythm, and then we find ourselves with an error or two. We're a goal down. And this is exactly what happened yet again. Our game was broken down with an error, and then Fulham were on the advance, and then they scored a goal. And it was a really well taken goal by Jimenez, to be quite honest with you. Um, as far as we were concerned, after going a goal down, we then couldn't string two passes together. We were doing really poorly. And it goes back to, again, asking myself, why was Antonio in this starting lineup? He didn't look like he was ready. He didn't look like he had any energy. And given that Danny Ings was on the bench, I wasn't advocating for Ings to start, to be quite honest with you, but I also wasn't advocating for Antonio to start. I really thought that Jared Bowen was going to be the starting, was going to be the striker for this game. And he didn't look right, Antonio. And then same goes for Soucek. Soucek never got into the game. We are meant to be a passing team. Lopetegui. I know Lopetegui uses different styles, but we've got players in this squad that are good players on the ball. They pass and move and pass and move. We've got flair players. We've got players that can actually use the ball intelligently. So with Soucek being in the team, the game passed him by. He hardly got a touch, and when he did, it was not clever passing, and he wasn't moving in the right places. And then, of course, what we were doing, we got Antonio and Soucek in the lineup, and we were pumping the ball up high from the back, and it just wasn't coherent. It wasn't a sort of a good game for Soucek to be in. And so it really did surprise me that both players were in the starting lineup. Thankfully, Lopetegui made halftime changes, and he took the two players who weren't doing well, Soucek and Antonio, he took them off. And then he went with the lineup that I kind of assumed would have been a lot closer to the lineup he was going to start with. Somerville came in, Paqueta came in. It meant Kudus could go out on the right-hand side, and it meant Bowen played up front. We started to get back into the game. We were a little bit more coherent, and it was good to see. We're starting to get have more possession of the ball. But of course, when you have more possession, you're going on the attack. That puts you in jeopardy of conceding another goal. Now, bringing those players on seem right, but to be quite honest with you, Lucas Paqueta is just still not at his best. Maybe that was Lopetegui's plan, that Antonio and Paqueta had come back late from international duty, so he would only give them a half each. Maybe that was the thinking behind it. But Paqueta, for me, unfortunately, is still not at it. He misplaced passes. He was accused of doing that when he was away with the Brazil squad, accused of misplacing passes, etc. And it's still following him back in domestic football. And maybe, just maybe, when we've got all our players fully match fit, maybe Paqueta just needs just a bit of time on the sidelines to just reflect on his game plan. With regards to Somerville, I think he was excellent. I think he was at it. You could see he added pace. There was an urgency about his game. He was getting into the mix. And I think he's ready to start. I'm actually really surprised that Somerville didn't start the game against Fulham. But when he came on in the second half, he gave us a bit of impetus. And of course, what that meant was, it meant, as I said, it put Kudus out on the right-hand side. So I'm pleased about Somerville and the input that he's had so far. And I would be very, very surprised if he doesn't start the next game against Chelsea. Let's see what happens. So with more changes that came up, all with us chasing the game, Lopetegui went for it. A lot of people have started to get, the rumors are coming out now, or the murmurs, I should say, not rumors. The murmurs are coming out now. Oh, this is a bit more like Moyes, etc. David Moyes would never have taken off two holding midfielders, or he wouldn't have taken all his holding midfielders off. And this is what Lopetegui did. Soler came in, Ings came in. It was almost like a bit of a 4-4-2, but a very, very attack-minded 4-4-2. We had Soler and Paqueta in the middle, Kudus out on the right, Somerville on the left. They did switch over to become more traditional sort of wingers later in the game. But Ings came on alongside Bowen as well. But it left us wide open. And again, thankfully, Fulham couldn't take advantage of the amount of space they were given. Of course, we had another force change, by the way, with Wan-Bissaka having to go out on the left-hand side because of Emerson's injury, and Soufal came in as well. But Soufal did all right for the time that he was on the pitch. But we were left exposed. We were chasing the game, but we were making it count. And the game actually got exciting because it was a bit end to end. We were trying to get the equaliser. Fulham were trying to take advantage of us opening the play up. But the game was exciting. It was the sort of game where it was end to end. And of course, then right at the last minute, we got what we were hoping for. We got the goal, and it was fantastic for Danny Ings to have got the goal, to have got the equaliser, and well done to him. Now, does it mean that Ings should be starting in the next game? I genuinely don't know, and I'm not going to suggest that. Ings being on the bench, I think, is another matter. I think Danny Ings does give us something different to Mikel Antonio. I think if you look at Fulkrug, there's a suggestion that because of his lack of pace, etc., we need a more pacey striker. Ings isn't pacey, but Ings has got good foot movement. I mean, the way he took his goal when Bowen cut it back to him, and Ings just sided it and then whacked it in low, hard corner, really difficult for the keeper to save, and it was all right. Leno fumbled it, but who cares? It went in. That was the important thing. So we finished the game better than we started the game well. We then went in a lull in the first half, and we kind of gave Fulham a lot of possession, a lot of the play. And then in the second half, when Lopetegui made the changes, we started to get back into it. And I think we finished it well. But it does ask the question, what sort of lineup do we now want moving forward? Now, I think there's some choices here. With regards to our defense, I think Mavropanos has made maybe just another one or two mistakes yet again. And there's a big call out now for Todibo to start a game sooner rather than later. Soler, obviously, is still not 100% match fit. And, he looked like he was trying to get in there, but he got a booking pretty quickly after he came on. But you could see Soler coming in. But it's what happens up front. Now, I did just suggest that maybe Paqueta should be sort of sidelined on the bench for a while, coming on later in a game to influence it if need be. I want to see one player, and I think we need to start thinking about really building our game plan around him. And it's Kudus. I'm really concerned about his body language. I was really concerned about his body language during the game. When we scored the goal, he came over. He didn't quite celebrate with the rest of the players. Maybe starting out on the left-hand side is beginning to, upset him a little bit. We know his best is when he's either on the right or he's in the middle. And you ask any Ghanaian fan, and they will argue the same thing, that he should be playing in the middle. What he did last season was, he was superb out on the right, and maybe that's where he should be starting. Now, I know then that questions what happens with Bowen. Well, then, if you want to keep Bowen on the right, then put Kudus in the middle and then start playing Somerville. I think Somerville deserves a starting berth now. And then what you do, and striker, whether it be Fulkrug or whether it be Ings, I think Antonio, with the greatest of respect to him, and this isn't an Antonio bashing show, as I've been accused of before, but with the greatest of respect, I think we need to start now seeing what Fulkrug can do. And if not, then start playing Danny Ings. But Danny Ings needs the support. And if there's a player that can actually support Danny Ings, it is somebody like Mohammed Kudus, who will run with the ball, sort of fit, Kudus can play off Danny Ings and vice versa. So if you put Danny Ings up front, then Kudus would be the ideal man. Kudus will also be the ideal man for Fulkrug as well, because again, what we're saying is we need to play to these players' strengths, and Fulkrug and Ings need that kind of support. So maybe going forward, there might be a change. I know Emerson's injured at the moment. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm talking about an ideal future lineup. You know, Todibo at the back, I think he's been biding his time. I think Mavropanos, I praised him over the first few weeks, but I think, again, he's just making a mistake or two, too many. Soler, once he becomes fully match fit, will be the option, maybe, alongside Alvarez. And then that front line, Somerville deserves his place. We got to get the best out of Mohammed Kudus. And I think he's got, you know, if you're going to have Bowen on the right-hand side and not up front, then Kudus is the player that really should be starting in the middle of the park. Look, there are some other positives, to be quite honest with you. I think Kilman has yet again demonstrated just how good a signing he's been. I think he just continues to impress. When you look at the stats, of course, I think they're pretty decent. You know, we had 8 shots. Sorry, we had 3 shots on goal to their 5, which is not bad considering they had more of the possession. But when you look at possession, we had about 45% possession, which is decent. One of the things that we've always complained about under David Moyes is not having enough of the ball. We now do have more of the ball. And I do see a difference in regards to the way we're playing. It's a shame that we didn't do this from kickoff with the right lineup and pushing, rather than having to wait till half time and being a goal down. But I think there's signs of improvement there. And there are murmurs. One or two fans are beginning to suggest that we're seeing more of the same. I don't think it was more of the same, to be quite honest with you. I actually am encouraged by what I've seen, but I don't want to have to wait until we're a goal down to actually have changes made that are positive. But for me, it's got to be about this man. I think we've got to start building around him. We've got to start using him to his strengths, because if Kudus is on his game, then the rest of the West Ham team will be on their game. With regards to the result, okay, we walk away with a point. We've got 4 points in 4 games so far, which is not fantastic. We've got a difficult game coming up, yet another London derby this Saturday against Chelsea, who are doing quite decently. So, or certainly did in their last game. So let's see how that goes against them. It's the team selection that is going to be interesting. I do actually think that possibly against Chelsea, we will play with a double pivot again of 2 defensive midfielders. But if that's the case, I want to see a more attack-minded front line. So I want to see Bowen, Kudus and Somerville going at that Chelsea defence. And I don't know who will be up front. I don't think it should be Antonio, to be quite honest with you. Look, if you like what you've heard, if you like what you've seen, like I said, please do hit that like button. Please do become a subscriber if you're already not. And I will see you all again for the West Ham Weekly on Monday evening. Thank you all for watching and have a good rest of the weekend.